Hello and welcome to another action-packed, exciting hour of the Smoky Mountain Wrestling Re-Watch-Along Project. This is podcasting the way it used to be and the way you like it. This show is a production of the Something Else Podcasting Network, and it's episode number 051 of Smoky Mountain Wrestling from January 16th, 1993, taped December 12th, 1992, at the East High School in Morristown, Tennessee. My name is Aria, and welcome to the show. Now, in case this is the first time you've ever checked out the Smoky Mountain Re-Watch Along Project, what we do here, it is really quite simple. We watch every single episode of Smoky Mountain Wrestling, beginning with episode number 1 on February 1st, 1992. We go all the way to episode number 200 on November 26th, 1995. We talk about the good, the bad, the ugly, the indifferent, the okay, the so-so, the whatever, the amazing, the tremendous, the out of this world, the all right, the awful, the in between. We listen to some angles. We talk about the matches. We watch some promos. And generally, we just have fun going back into a Wayback Machine for the next hour and discussing Smoky Mountain Wrestling from 1993. Plus, at the end of the show, to give you some context into what's going on in the world of wrestling, I tell you what else is happening this week in the world of wrestling, because I can tell you January 16th, 1993, until I'm blue in the face. However, that may not mean anything. So I tell you what else is happening, so this way you go, oh yeah, I know that. I remember that. I remember the story about that happening. That happened at the time? Yes, it did. All right. So let's go to our opening segment. It's the open with Bob Caudle and Dutch Mantell. They're going to talk about today's show and the big event where we're going to crown our first ever Beat the Champ TV champion.
Hi, wrestling fans. Welcome to another action-packed hour of Smoky Mountain Wrestling. Wrestling the way it used to be and the way you like it. I'm Bob Caudle, and we got a great hour in store for you this week. My partner, Dutch Mantell, right here. He's going to have a down and dirty. We'll find out about that in just a moment. Also, as promised last week, we're going to have a TV champion crown, a four-man elimination match for our television championship, along with $1,000. Also, during this hour, you're going to see Kevin Sullivan against the Mongolian Stomper. Now, Dutch, what are you going to have for us?
Well, first of all, I wasn't going to bring this up, but I think the fans need to know this. This past week, via U.S. mail, I was notified through the mail, of course, that I have been awarded an honorary Doctorate of Philosophy degree from the University of Delaware, and Professor Douglas Stalker awarded me that, and also wanted to know would I be available for 1993 commencement ceremonies, and I told him yes. Now, Bob, you will have to refer to me as Dr. Mantell from now on out. And first of all, on Down and Dirty with Dutch, just call me Doctor, let it go. On Down and Dirty with Dutch, I got Mr. Wonderful Paul Orndorff is going to have a few words for us, and the main event today, one of the wildest matches ever signed for Smoky Mountain Wrestling, will be the master Kevin Sullivan versus the Mongolian Stomper right here today, the main event.
All right, let's call in some guys right here. We've been talking about our elimination match for our TV championship, $1,000. One of the contestants is going to be this man right here, the Dirty White Boy, and here is his manager, Mr. Ron Wright.
You're out here talking about this tournament's going on for the TV title. I just don't want you're looking at that heavyweight champ. What can I say? Why would I want to have another title? But I tell you what I do want. Every time that you win out there, that's $1,000. So if I was to win $1,000 this week, I come back next week, I win another $1,000. That's what I'm after, not any other titles. I am the Smoky Mountain Heavyweight Champion. What I want is the money.
Well, all right. Now, Mr. Wright, last week, let's bring this young man in right over here. This young man, Reno, last week you offered him what I know you considered was a fantastic proposition.
Listen, I offered that man the opportunity of his life. All he's got to do is kind of help me and the Dirty White Boy out, carry his bags, and see to it that I get my heart medicine, my arthritis medicine on time and stuff like that. We'll put him under our wing, train him, and things will come along. I guess you went ahead and accepted our offer down there I gave you last week, didn't you?
Well, let's don't rush things a bit here. I think it was a mighty generous offer that you've made me. I mean, nobody else has come up and offered me anything, but, beggars can't be choosy, so I'm not begging. But, you know, there's a lot of things going on in my mind right now, and, not to upset you or anything, but could I have a little bit more time to think this over with?
How in the world can the man ask for more time? I'm the Ron Wright, the living legend in the whole world of wrestling, and you want more time? Jesus.
All right, Fizz, we're going to hear more about this, too, in the weeks to come, so stay tuned. We're going to be back. We're going to hear Down and Dirty with Dutch in just a moment. Let's take this time out.
Okay. So we have our TV title match today. It's going to be Tracy Smothers, Dirty White Boy, Jimmy Golden, and Killer Kyle. Plus, we're going to have the damnedest main event we've ever seen. You heard them. It's going to be Kevin Sullivan versus the Mongolian Stalker. I'm sorry, Kevin Sullivan versus the Mongolian Stomper, excuse me, which is the actual match that Caudle was referring to last week when we went off the air saying it's going to be Sullivan versus the Stalker, because that couldn't just be aired, but or re-taped or whatever. Oh well. But so the point of this is we bring it. Actually, before that, we mentioned that Dutch Mantel is now a doctor. He's been awarded an honorary doctor of philosophy from the University of Delaware. I don't know how legitimate that is. Like, obviously, universities do give out, honorary degrees and honorary doctorates. Like fucking Vince McMahon got an honorary doctorate at one point. But so he's now the doctor, Dr. Dutch Mantel. And unlike Tom Pritchard, he didn't have to go out and get a doctorate in desire. So this week, we're going to have Mr. Wonderful and Down and Dirty, which we're going to get to in a minute. But in comes Dirty White Boy and Mr. On Right. Now, as we've mentioned, Dirty White Boy is the Smoky Mountain Heavyweight Champion. So you sitting at home might be wondering, hey, if he's the Smoky Mountain Heavyweight Champion, why is he bothering wrestling for the TV title? He doesn't need 2 titles. They acknowledge that. They establish that, hey, if he wins, he gets $1,000. And he gets to come back next week and win another $1,000, et cetera, et cetera. So there is a reason for him to keep coming back week after week, even though he's the Smoky Mountain Champion and wrestling in these TV title matches, because it's the money. They want the money. And from here, we bring in Reno Riggins. Now, we've mentioned this in the past. Reno Riggins is an enhancement talent who never really got a push, and you always wondered why he didn't get a push, because, the enhancement talent we've seen of everyone who's never gotten a push, he's, pretty high up there on the talent list. And so we've got him here in a little bit of a storyline where Mr. Ron Wright is offered to take him under his wing and, teach him under the same tree with Dirty White Boy. All he has to do is carry their bags and give him his arthritis medication. It's a pretty good gig, if you ask me. However, Reno, who's never won a match in this company so far, he still needs more time to think about it. And this is where Ron Wright, I'll tell you what, I have my doubts that any of this had anything to do with the angle, but him stumbling over his words and calling himself, a redneck, gentleman, it's it worked. It worked. Because, he's actually upset that this motherfucker, this guy that they're giving the chance of a lifetime to, he's like, no, I need time to think about this. And so it made sense that he's not cutting this, eloquent, 2-minute promo on the guy. He's upset, and this is where he yells, Jesus. And have you ever heard the sound drop of Mr. Ron Wright saying, Jesus? This is where it's from. So that continues. Will Reno Riggins, go with Mr. Ron Wright and Dirty White Boy? So from here, we got a packed show, so it's already time for Down and Dirty with Dutch. But first, we see the end of last week's tag team match, where Orndorff pinned Tim Horner after using a foreign object. He should have hit him harder. So we now go back to Dutch, who's going to be joined by Mr. Wonderful Paul Orndorff for promo.
As promised, my special guest right here on Down and Dirty with Dutch, none other that Mr. Wonderful Paul Orndorff and you people will shut up just a minute and give this man the respect he deserves. Thank you for appearing on my show, and I'm sure you have some good comments for the fans of Smoky Mountain Wrestling.
First of all, Dutch, or shall I say, Dr. Dutch Mantell, I'd like to congratulate yourself and for that honor for stating. You know something? That shows me one thing. You're a lot smarter than these 8-to-5ers out here, these rednecks. But you know what I don't understand is this. What is all the fuss about Tim White Lightning Horner? You know, he came from a little rinky-dinky hillbilly town. Matter of fact, I even heard that he went to this, I guess you would call it a high school. You know, this looks like something down in the ghetto in New York City, as far as I'm concerned. But you know, all the people, they seem to want to rally around Tim Horner. Because, well, let's face it. Who from East Tennessee have you ever heard of? Have you ever heard of anybody from East Tennessee? Not me. So I can understand why they rally around Tim Horner. I mean, these rednecks out here, they don't, you know, they really don't know what a true athlete is. Like Mr. Wonderful. Mr. Wonderful has been all over the world. International. Every time you turn on the TV, what do you see? You. Mr. Wonderful. I was just on WCW, and I just beat Ron Simmons. Exactly. WWF, what happened to Hulk Hogan?
He retired.
That's exactly right, on his back in a stretcher. But you see, Mr. Wonderful is everything. Mr. Wonderful is what everybody would like to be. Exactly. Exactly. I know they love you. And you know something else? Well, I'll tell you what. I want to ask this kid.
Wait a minute, ladies and gentlemen. Paul Orndorff is calling a young gentleman out of the audience.
What's your name, son?
Chris Brown.
Chris, uh-huh. Well, who's your favorite wrestler? White who? White Lightning. You can't even talk right.
Who's your favorite wrestler?
White Lightning.
White Lightning. And why is he your favorite wrestler?
Because he should be the champion.
Should be the champion. Well, you know something, son? You just saw me beat Tim Horner right in the middle of the ring, fair and square. But let me tell you, I'm going to have a little talk with you. I want to have a talk with you, maybe like your daddy should. But, well, I don't guess we could use your daddy because he's always drunk all the time. And I understand that, son. I can understand why he's drunk all the time. I can see what of these people around here got to live for, but to drink, there's nothing around here. All the women look like hogs and got 4 legs. Besides that, I'm going to give you a lot of reasons why Mr. Wonderful and why you can change your mind now. Because, you know, it's like putting your money in a... You want your money to grow. You want your money to mean something. Tim Horner is no champion. Tim Horner ain't nothing but a little local hillbilly that the people rally around and they really think he's something. But see, nobody's ever came from around here, so I can understand that. But I'm going to give you a chance to get on the side of Mr. Wonderful, a true champion, a man that's been all over the world, and you know something? Hey, a lot of good things can happen if you just hang with Mr. Wonderful. And what is this? This a lightning bolt? Huh? How much did that cost? $3. I bet you had to save. I bet your daddy worked for a whole month to get $3, didn't he? Well, I'm going to tell you something. This here, $3 for something that really, you know, let's face it. This, I mean, you know, this White Lightning, this is what I think of White Lightning. I mean, this is a big joke. And
Okay. In case you couldn't figure it out, and you know the reason why the crowd suddenly popped, and you know Dutch yelled "Oh" is because Horner ran out. But anyway, so Mr. Wonderful, just 4 minutes of gold right here. 4 minutes 11 seconds of gold. He congratulates Dutch on being a Dutch, and he says that he's smarter than the 8-to-5ers and the rednecks. And he mentions he does not understand what the fuss is about Tim Horner. I think we're all at that point, Mr. Wonderful. What is the fuss with Tim Horner? I don't know. I don't think anybody really does. But, you know, he talks about how Horner is from, you know, here in East Tennessee. And he talks about East High School being a ghetto and, like, yeah, Jesus Christ. I swear I've caught Tim Horner disease. He talks about East High School being like a ghetto in New York City. He understands why they rally around Horner because there's no one famous from East Tennessee. However, now they have Mr. Wonderful here. And Mr. Wonderful is a worldwide star who just beat former world champion Ron Simmons on WCW television. He's injured Hulk Hogan. He is everything that everyone would like to be. He then goes and grabs a kid out of the audience. And I can't imagine this kid as a plant. Maybe he is, but I mean, I can't imagine Cornette, going to a kid and smartening him up and saying what's going to happen. But I guess anything's possible. But I'm not expecting that to happen here. But anyway, so he grabs a kid out of the audience who says that Mr. Wonderful asks who his favorite wrestler is. He's like, White Lightning. White Lightning. And when he asked why is White Lightning his favorite wrestler, because he should be the champion. And Orndorff points out that he beat Horner fair and square, and then talked about Chris's daddy. And the kid's name is Chris. And he talks about how his daddy's probably drunk. He talks about all the women look like hogs, and that Tim Horner is no champion. He's a lot of things. He's a local hillbilly. The fans rally around him and think he's something, but he's not a champion. He's going to get the chance to hang with Mr. Wonderful, but Orndorff's going to prove otherwise. And then Orndorff took the $3 Tim Horner foam lightning bolt and ripped it up. And this is the only thing I'll say that it might have been a plant, just because Horner did not sell many of those damn lightning bolts. And you would think, like, being at, a wrestling show, especially an indie show, like, you see a lot of merchandise get sold at indie shows. And because, especially with kids, because kids like to buy shit. And, they may not have any money, but parents have money, and they give the kids money to buy shit. But, anyway, Horner still never sold a whole lot of those fucking foam lightning bolts. So anyway, Orndorff rips it up when Horner comes flying in from out of nowhere. They fight towards the ring. Horner gets smashed into the turnbuckle, and that just fired him up even more. And was in the interest of fairness, and we rip on Horner a lot around these parts, the crowd went fucking nuts for Horner as he sent Orndorff packing. So this feud, which, by the way, is not going to last very long, because this is pretty much it for Mr. Wonderful, this feud must continue here. All right, so from here, they run down the rules of our four-way elimination match. So, I mean, we've all seen 8 million multi-man matches in our lives. You know how they work. The only difference between then and now is that, like, nowadays, it's just a four-way free-for-all, and, do whatever the hell you want. This match, like, there's only two people allowed in the ring, and you have to tag in and out. And if you refuse to tag in, you are disqualified. So here we go with our Beat the Champ TV title match. It is Jimmy Golden versus Killer Kyle with Jim Cornette versus Tracy Smothers versus Dirty White Boy with Mr. Ron Wright. So 3 heels and 1 babyface. I mean, you could argue that Golden at this point is, closer to a tweener, but he's still a heel. He's still a heel, folks. So before Tracy came out, we get an attempted scumbag alliance. Dirty White Boy shakes hands with Golden. He shakes hands with Cornette. And of course, because we've had this issue now with the Stud Stable and the Heavenly Bodies, Golden and Cornette do not shake hands. But even though they didn't shake hands, Tracy did take the time to go around the ring and shake hands and or hug pretty much anybody who wanted one. Which, again, he's a beloved babyface. And again, it's not just the Confederate flag thing. If it was that easy, Dixie Dynamite would already have been champion. But, Dixie Dynamite's not nearly in the same league of popularity as Tracy Smothers is. Tracy's just a down and down, really great guy and just loved by these fans. So Kyle attacks Tracy from behind and the match started. And then the match ended, kind of. Because seconds later, Tracy does a small package and pins Kyle. literally the reverberation from ringing the bell was still going, and Kyle had already been pinned. He did not even take off his jacket and tie. So we are already down to 3, as Tracy has eliminated one of his opponents already. So yes, the match does slow down because it had to, otherwise the match was going to end in 40 seconds. But the match slows down here with Tracy and Golden. Golden claims that Tracy grabs his tights during a schoolboy. White Boy holds Smothers for a golden punch, but Smothers ducked and Golden decked the heavyweight champion. Tracy then tunes up White Boy and pantomimed about Golden punching him. Minutes later, the heels try the same tactic. Tracy moves again, but this time, ha ha ha, this time, Golden was able to stop himself. But Tracy then came over and just rammed their heads together. Golden slaps on the abdominal stretch and was right next to the ropes, so I was convinced we were going to get the Mike Rotunda Classic. But alas, Golden just let go and did not grab the ropes for the advantage. Golden charges into the corner, but Smothers avoids the charge, rolls up Golden, and gets the elimination. So now Tracy Smothers has defeated Killer Kyle. He's defeated Jimmy Golden. And now it's just him and the Smoky Mountain champion, Dirty White Boy. Dirty White Boy, who hasn't even been in the ring yet. Dirty White Boy and Tracy Smothers. White Boy clotheslines Tracy over the top. Tracy skins the cat, and DWB clotheslines him right back out. Mark Curtis was distracted, so it was not a disqualification for going over the top rope. Inside the ring, White Boy runs at Tracy, but Tracy ducks and sends him careening out of the ring. The finish was White Boy doing, of all things, coming off the top rope with a crossbody, but Tracy rolls through, gets the pin and the win, and now Tracy Smothers is your first ever Beat the Champ TV champion. There's no title belt, but he received his check for winning. White Boy, understandably upset. Now, obviously, when you compare this to a 3-way or 4-way in 2024, it's very different. We've had 30 plus years of multi-man matches to perfect the quote-unquote organized chaos of a multi-man match, while this was essentially 3 singles matches. Because there was no tags. They mentioned tags, but at no point did anybody ever tag out. It was ostensibly a gauntlet match. Tracy started, Tracy continued in the middle, and Tracy finished it at the end. He got the win over all 3 men, including the Smoky Mountain Heavyweight Champion. So we're going to go here to Bob Caudle with Tracy Smothers, who is going to talk about being the Beat the Champ TV champion.
What a great event right there. What a great match this man wrestled. Tracy Smothers, you went through 3 of the toughest opponents I think that any man has ever faced on one night, Tracy. You're our television champion, and along with that, $1,000, and you get an opportunity to pick up another $1,000 next week.
Oh, man, thank you, Mr. Caudle. Man, I've wrestled in every major star in this sport, and I'm going to tell you what, that's 3 of the toughest guys I've ever wrestled in my life. I think my ribs are cracked, I'm not sure, but good gosh, I'm just so glad to be $1,000 richer, and I'm more even glad to be the first television champion of Smoky Mountain Wrestling.
And I think also that right there you sent a message that you deserve a chance at that Smoky Mountain Heavyweight Championship title.
Yes, sir, as I said before, I feel like I'm on that stairway to heaven. I'm on a mission, and I got to climb the great Smoky Mountain itself. I'll do it. If I can defend this TV title 5 weeks in a row, then I get a $5,000 bonus, and that's what this sport's all about. And I'm going to tell you this, by the good grace of God and the support of the fans and all the millions of people right there on TV, this old Southern boy right here, 1993 will be the year that the South shall rise again.
What a great accomplishment, fans, for this young man, Tracy Smothers, now our television champion. We'll be back.
Okay. So, there wasn't a whole lot to this promo. The most notable thing is, Bob Caudle, and we've mentioned this before, for some reason, announcers can never hold the goddamn microphone up. They're and Caudle's holding it down by his waist. And fucking Tracy Smothers is having to bend over at basically a 90-degree angle to talk into the microphone. He keeps picking the microphone up, and then Cottle would just drop it. And it's like, it's hilarious that you can make this poor bastard, constantly be bent over at a 90-degree angle here throughout the promo. But Tracy's your Smoky Mountain TV champion. He's going to defend the title next week. And the Beat the Champ TV title, it's going to continue for the next, I think, two and a half years, because they just drop it in 1995. But this is a consistent thing here through most of Smoky Mountain's run. So from here we go back to the desk. Bob Caudle and Dutch Mantell are going to be talking about what's going on with the Heavenly Bodies in the stud stable, and a misunderstanding that's happened recently when they were trying to cut a local promo. It's a little long, but it's good. Let's go to that now.
Fans, right now back in ringside. Dutch, let's talk a moment about the stud stable, the Heavenly Bodies, rock and roll, all three of them now. A very interesting situation developing. I don't really understand what happened between the Heavenly Bodies and the stud stable.
Well, first of all, they had an interview session. They were doing an interview, but both the Heavenly Bodies and the stud stable thought they were both supposed to do it at the same time, but it was a misunderstanding. But we have an altercation I think we need to look at.
All right, fans, and this occurred in the locker room. Let's see just what happened when this confrontation took place.
2-minute interview, Beckley.
Matthew, that's the best one yet. That's a nice suit. Who was it made for anyway, huh? What do you...
My suit.
Hey, Curtis, did you ask Santa to bring you some elevator shoes for Christmas or what, huh? Yeah? What is it, 2 minutes? All right, get out of the way. Let the master take over. I got it. Beckley, Jesus. Tom, tell Santa to put the girls back in the limousine. We'll mess with them later on, What? I hate that stinking Beckley. Worse than anything. Go over there.
See the blonde?
Dan, not now.
The blonde is the new one. I like the blonde.
What is this, Beckley? Yeah, it's Beckley.
Let's hurry up.
Is there only two?
We got to take the wait on it. She's
2 minutes?
Hair down. Let's knock it out. Let's go. And she does too. I love her, man.
Well, get out of the way, short stuff, so that we can do something here.
Do this business and get out of the way. We got some dates, kid. Come on. We're waiting on the stud stable. We're supposed to be here for this.
Who?
The stud stable. This is ours. Wait, stud stable.
Wait, you didn't say, hey, you didn't say nothing about the stud stable. We ain't gonna do whatever you the stud stable. Just talk to us. Don't worry about the stud. Hey, nobody gives they got to say to begin with. Huh? What? Hey.
Nobody don't care anything about doing any interview with you either, you big man. I mean, what's your problem, man?
Let me tell you something. You better not come in here talking to us like that. We're champions.
Hey, you know something? You guys are afraid to do an interview with us. Not only like that, you guys are afraid to get in the ring with us. You better be glad the camera ain't on.
Hey, let me tell you something. The only thing that we're scared of is you and that furball friend of yours, Dutch Mantell, will have a heart attack. They shouldn't call you the stud stable. They ought to call you the over the hill gang.
Come on, hey, come on. Hey, come on.
All right, fans, and here with us right now, the Heavenly Bodies, and of course our manager Jim Cornette. And Jim, it looks to me like what was friends, that some things are coming between friends, and it could develop into a tough situation.
Let me just say this. First of all, I see your broadcast partner out here looks like Inspector Clouseau. He better take some messages back. Stud Stable, we don't appreciate people messing in our business. And to tell you the truth, we weren't never friends with them to begin with. We just said that try to make them feel good, because the fact of the matter is, we consider people from Tennessee rednecks, whether they're Tennessee studs or swaybacks like these people out here. We want our belts. We want the Rock and Roll Express. They're so cowardly. The Rock and Roll Express, they're not even here today. They're saying they're off defending a title elsewhere. Well, they ought to be right here putting the belts up against the rightful champions. I'm sick of this stud stable trying to come out here, interfere with our title matches, trying to get on our nerves, trying to take our minds off what we're doing. And what is this now? Hey, I got to complain about this TV title thing I want to talk to you about.
Commissioner Bob Armstrong. Commissioner.
Before we talk about complaints, just let me say right here and now that 2 weeks from right now,
there will be a tag team championship match held right here on TV.
Well, good. All right.
We'll sign them right now.
Yeah, that's the contract.
Let me add this. The number one contender, the number one tag team contender will wrestle the Rock and Roll Express on TV for that title.
Well, that's us, right? That's us. We're number one contenders.
Well, maybe it is and maybe it's not. The stud stable may be the number one. That's up for me to decide. I've got 2 weeks to do it, and I'll decide. And while I'm on the subject, you heavenly bodies, you, Tom Pritchett, have been doing a lot of things with that boot. I've seen films on it. I'm going to launch a thorough investigation. And if I find anything wrong with that boot, brother, you're in a lot of trouble as well as you, Cornette, and the rest of the heavenly bodies. You better know I'm going to be keeping my eye on that foot.
Hey, who does he think he is? Mel Phillips or somebody keeping an eye on a man's foot? He's got a bad ankle. That's what the problem is.
He's the commissioner. He's the Smoky Mountain commissioner, and it's within the rules and the limits that he can do that.
You realize what he's trying to do, don't you, Tom?
I realize.
He's already setting us up. He's already setting us up for another ripoff.
It sounds like a conspiracy any way you want to cut it. Just because I've got a broken ankle, just because of the fact that Bob Armstrong wants to do everything he can to the heavenly bodies to make sure that we don't get another title shot. I can tell you this, we are the number one contenders, and we are the true champions of Smoky Mountain Wrestling. You know, jealousy is running rampant here in Smoky Mountain Wrestling. Everybody's against us. You know, he and I are like two big, tough, stud Rottweiler dogs, and now we got these two mongrel, half-breed, lanky hound dogs named Golden and Fuller standing in our way, barking at us. Well, let me tell you, these little hound dogs, something. Get out of our way, quit barking, because we're coming straight for the Rock and Roll Express. Whether Bob Armstrong, whether the rednecks here, or anybody like it, we're getting their belts back.
That's exactly right.
From Heavenly Bodies and Jim Cornette fans, we'll be right back, right after this.
Okay. So, it started great, the middle was great, the ending was great. It was 6 great fucking minutes here, continuing the build towards what has been a fantastic program here with the Heavenly Bodies and Stud Stable. And it's hilarious because it includes the Rock and Roll Express, but the Rock and Roll Express really haven't really done anything in this feud. Like, they were part of the Christmas Chaos shenanigans. But other than that, it's just been a lot of great promos back and forth between, you know, the Heavenly Bodies team and the Stud Stables team. And it's going to keep going here because this is still going on for at least another 6 or 7 weeks, I believe. And we're going to have some twists and some turns to go along with it. So we started with going to a pre-tape promo, one of those pre-tape local promos we never talk about. And it was going to be, I don't know, and I think it was supposed to be like, you know, one of those things you see where it starts with, you know, the Heavenly Bodies, and then, you know, once they cut their 30-second promo or whatever, the guy turns his head to the right and talks about the Stud Stable who walks in from the left or whatever. Or maybe they were supposed to cut it at the same time. Who knows? But either way, it led to, you know, an argument. And first they're ripping on Beckley, West Virginia, and Mark Curtis says that, you know, they're waiting for the stable. Cornette says that no one gives a fuck about the Stud Stable. And this is how you can tell it's quote-unquote real, because Cornette obviously wouldn't swear on TV, so it had to get bleeped out. In walks Fuller and Golden, and I already hated Fuller because he's wearing a Dallas Cowboys sweatshirt, but ignoring that for a minute, they have a back-and-forth argument. Golden shoves Cornette. Everyone starts shoving each other, and security and whatnot run in to break it up. That then goes to the live promo with Cornette and the Heavenly Bodies. Cornette tells Cottle to tell Dutch, takes some messages to the back. He says that they were never friends with the Stud Stable, and they were just being nice because they'd never be friends with people from Tennessee. Let's put on Stan Lane had a fucking amazing tan. I think he's, you know, if he didn't spend all Christmas break, you know, in the fucking Florida sun, you know, I don't know what the fuck to say, even though it wouldn't even be Christmas break because the fucking show was taped on December 12th. So we didn't spend all Thanksgiving break in the fucking Florida sun, you know, I don't know what the hell went on here. So Bullet Bob walks in and he says in 2 weeks, right here on TV, there's going to be a tag team title match where the Rock and Roll Express are going to defend against the number one contenders. And of course, Corny is all gloaty. And, Stan Lane and Tom Pritchard, they're well like, yeah, that's right. We're going to get a fucking title match in 2 weeks. But Bob says we don't really know who the number one contender is. The number one contender may not be the Heavenly Bodies. And Bob then says they're going to launch a thorough investigation into Dr. Tom's boot that he's been using. And then Cornette calls him Mel Phillips for being obsessed with someone's foot, which is an inside reference, but it's one of those things at the time, if you got it, it was funny. And even now, it's still kind of funny. They reiterate that they're the number one contenders. And even though jealousy's running rampant, they will go through the Hound Dogs, the Stud Stable, to get to the Rock and Roll Express to get their belts back. Just 6 terrific minutes. And like I said, it is sad that Smoky Mountain isn't more popular than it was at this point, because they are cutting some great promos. They're doing some tremendous TV, and it is gonna get better. They're gonna do a lot of good shit here, but we'll see what happens. So it's now time for the main event, because yes, that 4-way match was not the main event. It's also now time for the second match of the show, Kevin Sullivan versus the Mongolian Stomper. And this is a fight on the floor from the word go. Of course, a crazy street fight between them is much better than if the Stomper actually tried to have an actual match at this point. Sullivan used a thumb to the throat before getting in the ring. Now, I should point out the bell is already rung, and then they fought on the floor for a minute. They fought in the ring for about 17 seconds before they went back to the floor. Stomper takes his boot off, and the Night Stalker runs in, but Night Stalker gets hit with the boot. Sullivan then throws a fireball at Stomper for the disqualification, and Primetime Brian Lee runs in for the save. Allegedly. Instead, the heels double team Primetime Brian Lee, including doing a double stomp to the spleen. At that point, Chris Comet, Mark Curtis, and Dixie Dynamite all ran in and failed at making the save. So Tracy ran in and chased them all away. So here we are. Well, let's, go now to a promo here with Kevin Sullivan and the Night Stalker. And this actually isn't even going to be the end of the show yet.
Commissioner, let me tell you something. First, you sent the beast after us, the Mongolian Stomper. That didn't work. Next thing you did, Brian Lee came from a deathbed after us. That didn't work. You see, the Stomper and Brian Lee don't want to hurt us. They don't want to win. What they want to do is bury us. Bob Armstrong, my analyst, told me that I have pent-up aggression. Bob Armstrong, you're paying for all the therapy that I'm going through. I'm not this type of person, but Bob Armstrong, the sins that we're going to commit, the Night Stalker, 6'10", he will destroy you. First of all, I know that name is a felony, Brian Lee. Stomper, what we're gonna do in the ring, they can't lock us up like they did before. They can't shackle me up. They can't put me in that room again. Brian Lee, I tell you this, I swear on hell, Brian Lee, that you and the Stomper are gonna be named one way or the other. Bob Armstrong, you made me
All right. So Sullivan just recaps everything we've seen over the past few months. They took out Primetime Brian Lee, so Bullet Bob sent the Mongolian Stomper after them, and that didn't work. Sullivan screams that he has all this pent-up aggression. He says that he's not that type of person. He calls Night Stalker 6'10", which is complete bullshit. Anyway, says they can't be shackled up and put in a room for what they're going to do for Primetime Brian Lee and the Night Stalker. So Primetime Brian Lee, who's gotten his ass kicked once already on the show, runs out with a pipe, and he gets his ass kicked again. Jesus Christ, this motherfucker should have stayed home. Outran Mongolian Stomper to chase them off with his boot, whose Cheerios did Primetime Brian Lee piss in this week? And that brings us to the end of this week's show. So that's actually going to be the last time we ever see the Mongolian Stomper wrestle on TV. Now, they may do like the thing like we saw with Christmas Chaos, where he has a match and they air highlights of it or whatever on TV. But this is his last TV taping TV match. But he's actually here a lot over the next 3 years. I did not realize before just how much he's here, but he is pretty much here until almost the end. And he has 23 more matches on live events between now and September of 1995, which I get doesn't sound like much, but it really is going to the legend well a little bit too much. Plus, I'm pretty sure he was supposed to be a part of the final Thanksgiving Thunder show in 1995, but he no-showed them. But anyway, that does it. So we're 51 down, 149 to go. We had another fun show. We've got a new TV champion. We saw a crazy brawl with Sullivan and the Night Stalker. We had some great promo work again by Corny. We're just on a roll here. Now, of course, before we leave, we got to tell you what else is happening this week in wrestling. Because as we mentioned at the beginning of the show, I can tell you that it's January 16th, 1993 until I'm blue in the face. You may not know what that means. You may not know what else is going on in the world of wrestling. So I'm here to tell you. And the big news is that Ric Flair is leaving the WWF. Ric Flair has lost a Loser Leaves Town match to Mr. Perfect, which was taped on January 18th, and it's going to air next week on Raw on January 25th. This is the famous Loser Leaves WWF match that, you know, when the WWF puts out tapes talking about how great Raw is, this is the one thing that they air from like 93 to 96. This is that match. And in a way, it gave another fuck you to WCW, because now WCW isn't signing a huge star away from the WWF. They're signing somebody who lost his job and had no choice but to return. So, not that, you know, WCW didn't have enough fucking problems, but yeah. Elsewhere, Paul Heyman was officially fired from WCW for allegedly falsifying expense reports. Heyman had claimed to stay at the Ramada Hotel near the Atlanta airport, and the Ramada said that he didn't. Heyman claimed that they are going to court over the terms of his contract, which says he's entitled to 6 months severance pay unless he's fired for criminal action. And with that in mind, we're only 8 months away from him taking over the book in ECW. That's going to do it for this week. You know, so like I said, we're 51 episodes down. We have 149 to go. We are more than a quarter of the way through. But I want to thank everybody for listening. I hope you all enjoyed. Hope you had a good time. And we'll talk to you again in 7 days.